She watches him fold the boarding pass. Once, twice. His hand steady, but the paper trembles. Gate C12 military charter. Departure in 27 minutes. Sarah adjusts her wedding ring. Turns it clockwise. Again. The metal warm against her finger. He hasn't looked at her in the last 60 seconds. Not really looked. His eyes drift to the departure board. The coffee cart. Anywhere but her face. Final boarding call for flight 847... She reaches for his hand. He's already standing. 27 minutes became 27 seconds. This is their last ordinary moment before everything changes. 3 hours earlier, Sarah Chun had folded his last clean uniform, pressed the creases sharp enough to cut. Her fingers traced the name, tape, Chun, M, as if memorizing the letters. The ironing board still stands in their bedroom. Testament to this final ritual. She'd taken longer than necessary, smoothing each fold with military precision, as if perfect creases could somehow protect him 8,000 miles away. Michael stands at their kitchen window now, coffee growing cold in his hands. Outside, their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, waters her roses. Normal Tuesday morning, the garbage truck rumbles down Maple Street. A jogger passes with her golden retriever. Life continues its ordinary rhythm while there's fractures. Sarah finds him there, studies his profile against the morning light, the strong line of his jaw that she traces with her fingertip when he sleeps, the way his hair curls slightly at the nape of his neck, never quite regulation length. "The car's packed," she says quietly. He nods. Doesn't turn around. His reflection wavers in the kitchen window, ghostly and insubstantial. "I left the suitcase half a pan," she continues, "in case you forgot something." This is the conversation they've avoided for 3 weeks. Since the deployment orders came in that crisp white envelope, since their world tilted sideways and they both pretended gravity still worked the same way. Michael sets down his mug on the windowsill. The ceramic clinks against the wood, such a small sound to mark such a large moment. Finally, he faces her. "I keep thinking I should say something important," he admits. "Something profound. Something you'll remember when I'm gone." Sarah steps closer, close enough to smell his aftershave, the same brand he's worn since college, close enough to see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, the one from when he fell off his bike at 7 years old, racing to keep up with his older brother. She was there then, too. 6 years older self, crying harder than he did when she saw the blood. "We have time," she whispers. But they both know time is the one thing they don't have. The airport is 40 minutes away on a good day. Check-in closes at 11:30 sharp, no exceptions for military charters. The kitchen clock reads 9. Sarah washes. Michael calculate the same math in his head. Traffic patterns. Security delays. The buffer time his training demands for every mission, every movement. "Sarah." He starts, then stops. Shakes his head. "What?" "Nothing. It's just ... double quotes. He reaches for her hand. Intertwines their fingers. His wedding ring catches the morning light. 3 weeks ago, when those orders came, part of me was almost excited. New assignment, new challenges. I felt guilty about that. She squeezes his fingers. "I know. But now, standing here, I can't remember why any of that seemed important." Outside, Mrs. Patterson waves from her garden. Sarah lifts her free hand in response, maintaining the illusion of normalcy for one more moment. "We should go," Michael says. Neither of them moves. The dashboard clock glows green. 10:23 a.m. Sarah grips the steering wheel tighter. Traffic crawls on Highway 95, a river of red taillights stretching toward the horizon. Michael stares out the passenger window, his dress uniform crisp against the leather seat. The fabric still holds the shape of her careful ironing, each crease a small declaration of love. Construction narrows, 3 lanes to 1. Orange cones march in perfect formation, more orderly than the chaos they're meant to control. Exit 7.5 mile, Michael says, though they both know the route by heart. She already knows. She's driven this path in her mind 100 times over the past 3 weeks. Left at the terminal sign, follow the curve past short-term parking, merge into the departure lane behind the taxis and shuttle buses. There's Ivink, Isezam. A semi-truck changes lanes without signaling, forcing Sarah to brake harder than she intended. Michael's hand automatically reaches for the dashboard, an old reflex from his years of riding with new drivers on base. Remember when we came here for my cousin's wedding? Sarah tries to keep her voice light, conversational. You got us lost in the terminal for an hour because you insisted Terminal B was definitely this way. Michael's mouth quirks upward. Almost a smile. We missed the ceremony, but we made it for the reception. And the cake. Best wedding cake I ever had. That's because you were starving by then. Sarah signals for the exit, though there's nowhere else to go. The green highway sign looms overhead. Airport, all terminals, next right. 10:29 a.m. The radio plays soft jazz, the kind of music that fills space without demanding attention. A saxophone weaves through traffic noise, through the hum of the car's engine, through the sound of Sarah's carefully controlled breathing. Michael reaches over and turns down the volume. Not off, just ... quieter. As if he wants to preserve the silence between them, store it up against the months of distance ahead. Check-in closes at 11:30, he says quietly. I know. Military charters don't wait. If you miss it, we won't miss it. 10:31 a.m. They pull into the departure lane, military transport buses idle nearby, engines rumbling like distant thunder, soldiers in identical uniforms board methodically, efficiently. No rushed goodbyes here. No dramatic embraces cluttering the sidewalk. Just procedure, protocol, the careful choreography of departure. Michael unbuckles his seatbelt but doesn't move to get out. His hands rest on his knees, fingers spread wide as if anchoring himself to this moment, this car, this last pocket of their shared world. Through the windshield, Sarah watches a young soldier hug his parents. The mother clings too long, the father steps back too soon, and the soldier stands caught between them, trying to honor both reactions to his leaving. 10:33 a.m. 67 minutes. Sarah whispers, "It sounds like forever," when she says it aloud. It feels like nothing at all. Michael pulls his deployment orders from his jacket pocket, checks them one more time, though he's memorized every line. Flight number, departure time, destination code. His life reduced to bureaucratic shorthand. Gate C12, he reads. Unnecessarily. Sarah nods. She's memorized it too. Gate C12 will haunt her dreams for the next 12 months. She'll see it in her mind every time she enters an airport, every time she hears boarding announcements, every time she passes this stretch of highway on her way to work. 10:35 a.m. A security guard approaches their car, clipboard in hand. Time's up. The departure zone doesn't allow lingering, doesn't accommodate the wait of goodbye. 2 months ago, Sarah had found the envelope on their kitchen counter. Official letterhead. Department of Defense seal embossed in the upper left corner like a warning. The morning had started ordinary enough. Michael was in the shower, humming off. Key, like he always did. Usually something from the 80s. Half-remembered lyrics that made her smile from the bedroom. Steam curled under the bathroom door. Coffee dripped steadily in the maker. That reliable rhythm that marked the beginning of every day. Tuesday morning, perfectly routine. She'd known before opening it. The thickness of the paper, the formal address, typed in government, sans serif. The way her name appeared secondary, Mrs. Sarah Chun, as if she were just a footnote to his military career. An afterthought to be notified rather than consulted. Her fingers had trembled slightly as she tore the seal. Not from fear, exactly, but from the weight of certainty. Military wives develop this instinct early. The ability to recognize life-changing documents by their texture, their weight, their official gravity. 12-month deployments, she'd read aloud when Michael emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, hair still dripping onto his shoulders, that easy smile fading as he saw the letter in her hands. He'd gone very still. Not surprised that officers at his level expected these rotations every few years. Part of the career path he'd chosen before they met, before they married, before their life became something worth staying home for. But still, the reality, landing like a physical blow. Afghanistan, she'd asked, though the letter had already told her, training mission, he'd said carefully, reading over her shoulder. Base security advisory role. Nothing front line. The careful language of someone who'd learned to translate military speak for civilian ears. To minimize without lying. To reassure without making promises he couldn't keep. Sarah had nodded, set the letter down beside the coffee maker, next to the stack of unopened mail and yesterday's newspaper. Resumed buttering her toast, as if the world hadn't just rearranged itself around them. Normal movements, normal morning routine. The small rebellion of continuing as if nothing had changed. But that night, after dinner and dishes and the evening news, she'd found him in their bedroom, sitting on the edge of their bed, holding something small in his hands. His dog tags, the ones he'd worn through basic training, through officer candidate school, through their wedding ceremony where they'd pressed against her chest during their first dance. "I want you to keep these," he'd said, without preamble. She'd started to protest military regulations, chain of command. All the reasons he needed to wear them overseas. Needed them for identification, for medical emergencies, for the 1,000 bureaucratic requirements that governed military life. "I have others," he'd interrupted. "Standard issue. These are different. These are ours." He'd placed them in her palm, the metal still warm from his chest, from 2 years of wearing them against his heart. The engraving worn smooth in places from his thumb rubbing across the letters during long meetings. Stressful moments, quiet times when his mind wandered home. That was the first clue, though Sarah didn't recognize it then. Didn't understand that Michael was already preparing for separation, already dividing himself between the soldier who would deploy and the husband who would remain, somehow, in the weight of those small metal rectangles. She'd closed her fingers around them, felt their familiar edges press into her palm. "Okay," she'd whispered. Such a small word to contain such a large promise. The check-in line stretches 30 deep, maybe more. Families cluster around soldiers like protective barriers, wives clutching purses and children tugging at camouflage sleeves with questions their parents can't answer. Elderly parents trying to memorize faces they won't see for a year. Lines not moving, Michael observes, stating the obvious because silence feels too heavy between them. Sarah glances at her phone. 10:47 a.m. The numbers glow accusingly bright against the black screen. Ahead of him, multiple computer terminals, flash error messages in bureaucratic red. System failure, network timeout, processing delay, the language of modern frustration dressed in corporate politeness. The clerk types frantically, her fingers flying across keys that seem to mock her urgency. She shakes her head, calls for a supervisor, gestures helplessly at her screen. Other agents join the digital crisis, huddling around terminals like doctors consulting over a difficult diagnosis. Minutes bleed away. Precious, irreplaceable minutes. "Maybe I should find another line," Michael suggests, craning his neck to survey other check-in counters. They're all the same long queues of uniformed personnel and their families, all caught in the same electronic limbo. "They're all backed up," Sarah points out. "System-wide issue." A mother 3 places ahead starts crying, not the dramatic sobbing of movies, but the quiet tears of someone trying to hold herself together in public. She wipes them away before her teenage son notices. But he notices anyway. Always notices. Puts his arm around her shoulders. Whispers something that makes her nod and stand straighter. The boy can't be more than 16. Old enough to understand what deployment means. Too young to know how to fix it for his mother. 10:52 a.m. Sarah watches the departure board above their heads. Flight information updates in real time. A digital heartbeat counting down their remaining moments. Flight 847 still shows on time in green letters. But what does that mean when the entire check-in system has crashed? An elderly man behind them mutters under his breath about efficiency and taxpayer dollars. His wife shushes him, but Sarah can see the frustration in both their faces. Their grandson stands between them in fresh uniform, looking embarrassed by their worry and touched by their presence. Next, the clerk's voice cuts through the terminal noise. Somehow, miraculously, the computers have cooperated. The line lurches forward. Michael hands over his orders, his ID, his life condensed into official documents. The woman scans each barcode with practiced efficiency, types with the fluid motion of someone who's processed thousands of deployments. Systems running slow. Today, she apologizes without looking up from her screen. Military charters have been backing up all morning. Something about network maintenance that wasn't supposed to affect operations. She says this as if it's routine, just another Tuesday morning glitch in the vast machinery of military logistics. But Sarah can see the stress lines around her eyes, the way her shoulders bunched with tension. This woman processes goodbyes for a living. She knows what these delays cost in emotional currency. 10:58 a.m. Boarding pass, the clerk announces, sliding the paper across the counter with a practiced smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Michael folds it carefully. Once, twice. His hands steady now, but the paper trembles slightly in his grip. Gate C12, military charter, flight 847. Departure time pushed back to 12:15 p.m. due to earlier delays. They've gained 45 minutes. Sarah should feel relieved, should be grateful for this unexpected gift of time. Instead, she feels like someone just extended her execution. More time to say goodbye means more opportunities to say it wrong, to let fear creep into her voice, to make this harder than it needs to be. Michael studies the boarding pass as if it contains secrets beyond gate numbers and seat assignments. 45 minutes, he says quietly. Bonus time. Sarah tries to sound light, optimistic, but they both know that in the arithmetic of goodbye, more time doesn't equal easier. It just means more moments to fill with words they don't have. More opportunities for silence to reveal what they're both thinking. More chances to make this hurt worse than it already does. Last Sunday, Sarah had watched Michael pack, or 3, 2, pack. He'd pulled his deployment bag from the closet, the same green duffel that had traveled with him through 3 previous assignments. Back when he was single, when packing meant stuffing everything into compartments without regard for wrinkles or sentiment. Now he stood in their bedroom doorway, unzipped bag at his feet, staring at the empty interior as if it held answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. Socks, he'd muttered after 5 minutes of paralysis. Definitely need socks. Sarah had continued folding laundry at the foot of their bed, giving him space to work through whatever internal process governed military packing, but she'd watch from her peripheral vision as he selected a single pair of black dress socks, held them for a full minute, then set them down and walked to the window. 20 minutes later, she'd found him in the same position by the window, still holding those same socks. "Maybe I should help," she'd offered gently. "I've done this before," he'd replied, but his voice carried a note of uncertainty that hadn't been there during his previous deployments. And that was the truth of it, wasn't it? He had done this before, but not as a married man. Not with someone who would sleep in his t-shirts and keep his coffee mug unwashed in the sink for days, afraid that cleaning it would somehow erase his presence from their kitchen. Sarah had settled cross-legged on their bed, close enough to help if he asked, far enough away to let him maintain the illusion of independence. She'd watched him fold and refold the same uniform shirt 3 times, each attempt more meticulous than the last, as if perfect creases could compensate for the inadequacy of leaving. The sun had moved across their bedroom floor, marking time in squares of golden light that shifted from the dresser to the bed to the wall. Normal Sunday afternoon physics in a world that no longer felt governed by normal laws. "What if I forget something important?" he'd asked suddenly, breaking an hour of concentrated silence. "Like what?" "I don't know. That's the problem." Sarah had studied his profile against the afternoon light streaming through their bedroom window. The small line between his eyebrows that appeared when he concentrated. The way his mouth tightened when he was worried but trying not to show it. 2 years of marriage had taught her to read these subtle signals, this private weather system of his emotions. "You could leave the suitcase half open," she'd suggested quietly. "Check it once more in the morning before we leave." He'd nodded immediately, as if she'd solved some complex tactical problem, made a mental note, added it to some invisible checklist that governed his departure preparations. But Sarah had been thinking of something else entirely. The suitcase left open meant he wasn't really gone yet, still deciding what to take, what to leave behind, still tethered to their bedroom, their life, her presence moving through the familiar spaces of their home. It was a small rebellion against finality, a way of postponing the moment when everything would be packed, zipped, closed, ready for transport to a world she couldn't follow him into. The second clue, buried in plain sight, like a message only she was meant to decode. That evening, after a dinner neither of them had much appetite for, Michael had returned to his packing with renewed focus. Sarah had curled up in their reading chair, pretending to work on a crossword puzzle while actually watching him navigate the complex geography of goodbye. He'd packed methodically uniforms in one section, civilian clothes in another, personal items carefully wrapped and cushioned. But she'd noticed what he didn't pack: his favorite coffee mug, the one with the chip on the handle, the book he'd been reading, bookmarks still marking his place halfway through Chapter 7, the small framed photos of them from their anniversary dinner last month. "These stay," he'd said when he caught her looking at the photo. Not a question, a statement. Why? Michael had sat on the edge of their bed, the photo in his hands. In it, they were laughing at something the waiter had said, her hand resting on his chest, his arm around her shoulders, candid and unposed, caught in a moment of genuine joy. "Because this is what I'm coming home to," he'd said simply. "Not a memory, not a photograph. There's US." Still laughing at the same stupid jokes, he'd placed the frame back on his nightstand, in the exact spot where it had lived for the past 6 months. Another piece of himself deliberately left behind. Another thread connecting him to this room, this life, this version of himself that existed only in the space they'd created together. Sarah had understood then that his packing wasn't really about what to take. It was about what to leave, what to keep as anchor points in a life that was about to scatter across continents. The suitcase, half opened, the photograph, staying put, the coffee mug, waiting for his return. Small things. True thing, the quiet architecture of a love that refused to be contained by distance. Security checkpoint, 11:23 a.m. The line moves in spurts. Remove shoes, laptops, belts. Michael places his military ID in the plastic bin, his wedding ring alongside it. Sarah watches the ring tumble against the gray plastic. Such a small thing to contain so much weight. Next, Michael steps through the metal detector. Clean beep. No issues. Sarah follows. The machine screams. "Ma'am, step aside, please." The female TSA officer approaches with a handheld scanner. Sarah raises her arms, endures the methodical sweep. Beep! Her pocket! What's in there? Sarah reaches in, confused. Her fingers find metal. Smooth, familiar. Michael's dog. Tags. She'd forgotten. Slipped them into her jeans that morning, without thinking. 3 weeks of carrying them. And now they've betrayed her. Military identification. The officer asks, examining the tags. My husband's, Sarah explains, nodding toward Michael. He's already, through security, gathering his belongings, doesn't see the delay. I'm sorry, but these need to go through the scanner. More minutes, more procedures. Sarah watches Michael check his phone, then the departure board, then finally notice she's missing. He starts walking back toward security. Can't re-enter without going through the whole process again. Sarah waves him away. Mouth it's fine. Points to the dog tags. Understanding crosses his face. Then something else. A look she can't quite read. 11:31 a.m. The scanner clears. Sarah joins him on the other side. You've been carrying those? He asks quietly. Every day since she gave them to me. They stand there in the flow of departing passengers. People rushing past with rolling suitcases and boarding passes. Michael reaches for the tags, then stops. Keep them, he says, and for a moment, Sarah thinks this might be their goodbye. Right here between gates A1 and A15, with strangers streaming around them like water around stones. But then the boarding announcement echoes overhead. Flight 847 to Kandahar. Now boarding all passengers at Gate C12. They're not done yet. Gate C12 buzzes with controlled activity. Soldiers form loose groups by rank, by unit, by familiarity. Some joke quietly. Others sit alone, headphones in, eyes closed. Michael finds 2 empty seats near the window. Sarah sat us beside him, close enough that their shoulders touch. Boarding in 15 minutes, she observes, give or take. Through the glass, she can see the military charter, larger than a commercial airliner. No airline logo, just numbers stenciled on gray metal. Functional, anonymous. A soldier approaches their row. Young, maybe 22. Fresh uniform, nervous energy. Excuse me, sir. You're Lieutenant June? Right? From the 42nd. Michael nods. Private Morrison. I'll be in your unit overseas. The kid extends his hand. Looking forward to working with you. They shake. Brief, professional. You married, Morrison? Michael asks. Yes, sir. 2 months ago. Pride and worry wore across the young man's features. She's taking it pretty hard. Sarah spots her across the waiting area. Another young woman, maybe 20, clutching tissues and trying not to stare at the boarding gate. First deployment, Sarah asks gently. Morrison nods. For both of us. Michael and Sarah exchange a look. They remember being that young, that afraid, that convinced that love alone would bridge any distance. It gets easier, Michael tells him. Sarah isn't sure that's true. Different, maybe, but not easier. Morrison rejoins his wife. Sarah watches them whisper urgently. Foreheads touching, hands clasped, tight enough to turn knuckles white. We weren't like that, were we? She asks. Worse, Michael admits. She laughs, despite herself. Then catches sight of the clock above the gate. 11:58 a.m. 17 minutes. Attention passengers, Flight 847 will begin boarding momentarily. Please have your boarding passes and identification ready. The words echo off concrete walls, disappear into high ceilings. Final, as a judge's gavel. Sarah feels Michael tense beside her. I should tell you something, she says suddenly. He turns to face her fully. Last week, after he left for base, I sat in our kitchen and imagined what it would be like, coming home to an empty house. No coffee brewing in the morning, no one leaving socks on the bathroom floor. Michael starts to speak, but she continues. And I thought maybe I should learn to be okay with that. Independent, strong, like the other military wives who make this look easy. Sarah, but I can't. The confession tumbles out. I can't pretend this is just another business trip. I can't act like 12 months is nothing. I can't wave and smile and tell everyone how proud I am when mostly I'm just scared. Her voice breaks on the last word. Michael reaches for her hands. Scared of what? That you'll forget what we feel like. That I'll get used to sleeping alone. That we'll become strangers who send polite emails about the weather. That won't happen. How do you know? Michael's quiet for a long moment. Around them, soldiers say goodbye to parents, spouses, children. Each farewell unique and identical at once. I don't, he admits finally. But I know that 3 weeks ago, you started carrying my dog tags without me asking. And this morning, you left the suitcase open so I could check it one more time. And right now, you're telling me the truth instead of pretending to be brave. Sarah wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. Those aren't accidents, Sarah. That's how people stay connected across distance. Small things. True things. The boarding announcement begins again. Formal, measured, inevitable. First group, please approach the gate. Michael pulls out his phone, shows Sarah at the lock screen. Their wedding photo. Her in white, him in dress blues, both of them laughing at something his father had whispered during the ceremony. I set this 3 weeks ago, he says, after the deployment orders came. Sarah studies the image. She remembers that moment. The photographer had been arranging them for serious portraits when Michael's dad leaned over and mumbled, "At least the military will teach him to make a bed properly." She'd snorted with laughter. Michael had started giggling. The photographer had snapped the shot by accident, caught them in genuine joy instead of posed perfection. "Why that picture?" she asks. "Because that's us. Not the nervous couple from this morning, or the scared wife and soldier from last week. That's who we are when everything else falls away." Sarah looks closer. In the photo, her left hand rests on his chest. Over his heart, her wedding ring visible, but also your dog tags, she breathes. "You're touching them in the picture. Did you even realize?" She hadn't. But now she sees it. Her fingers curved around the metal tags beneath his uniform jacket. An unconscious gesture. Natural. As breathing. "I gave you mine because they belonged with you already," Michael explains. "You've been keeping them safe since the day we got married. I just made it official." The third clue. Not planted, but grown. Rooted in 2 years of marriage. Of learning each other's rhythms. Of becoming something larger than the sum of their separate selves. Second boarding group, please approach the gate. Michael's group, Sarah's countdown, accelerates. But now, she understands. The dog tags weren't a goodbye gift. They were a promise. A piece of him that already lived in her hands. Her heart, her unconscious gestures of love. She'd been carrying him all along. Michael stands. Sarah follows. They join the line of passengers, moving toward the gate agent. Each step deliberate, measured. No rushing now, no panic. Just the steady advance toward an inevitable moment, Lieutenant. The gate agent checks his boarding pass. His orders: have a safe deployment, sir. Professional courtesy, said 100 times today, will be said 100 more. But then Michael does something unexpected. He steps aside, out of the boarding line, and turns back to Sarah. "I want to tell you something important," he says. "Something you'll remember." She waits. "This morning, when you asked if I forgot anything, I lied." His voice, steady now, clear. I did forget something. I forgot to tell you that every morning, for the past 3 weeks, I've woken up grateful that you're the person I get to miss. Sarah feels tears start, but doesn't look away. Most people never find someone worth missing, worth staying connected to across 8,000 miles, worth coming home to. The final boarding call echoes overhead. Last chance for flight 847. I'm not saying goodbye, Michael continues. I'm saying thank you for making this hard, for making it matter. He reaches into his uniform pocket and pulls out something small. Folded paper. My boarding pass from our honeymoon, Denver, to Hawaii. I've carried it for 2 years. Sarah takes it, unfolds the worn edges. M. Chun. Printed in airline sans serif. Seat 12A. Departure date, 2 years, 3 months. 14 days ago. I'm not very good with words, he says, but I'm good at keeping things that matter. And when I come home, I want to plan another trip, somewhere we've never been. Make another boarding pass to carry. Sarah tucks the old boarding pass into her pocket, next to his dog tags. Final call for flight 847. All remaining passengers must board immediately. This is it. Michael leans forward, kisses her softly, briefly. No desperate clinging, no dramatic farewell, just the quiet press of his lips against hers, the taste of morning coffee and promises. When they separate, he's already stepping away. See you soon, he says. The most ordinary words in the world. The most extraordinary promise. Sarah watches him walk down the jet bridge. Military bearing, shoulders straight, each footfall confident and measured. He doesn't look back, doesn't wave, doesn't make it harder than it already is. The gate agent closes the door with a pneumatic hiss, seal shut. Final. Outside the window, she sees him through the aircraft's small porthole. He finds his seat, stows his carry-on bag, settles in for the long flight ahead. For a moment, neither moves. Sarah at the gate window. Michael in seat 23C. 8 feet of space that might as well be 8,000 miles. Then Michael raises his hand, places it flat against the window from inside. Sarah mirrors the gesture from outside, palm to palm, separated by inches of reinforced glass and the weight of everything unsaid. They stay like that until the aircraft pushes back from the gate. Her hand remains pressed against the cool window long after his disappears from view. The terminal empties slowly. Gate C12 returns to ordinary purpose. Delayed flights from Chicago. Boarding calls for business travelers heading to Dallas. Sarah walks back through security, through the parking garage, to their car. The passenger seat still holds the impression of Michael's uniform. The radio still tuned to the country station he prefers. She drives home in silence. Their house looks exactly as they left it 3 hours ago. Coffee mug still on the counter. Suitcase still half open in the bedroom. Tuesday morning, suspended in time. But something has shifted. Sarah moves through familiar rooms with new understanding. She finds their wedding album in the living room bookshelf. Flips to the photo Michael showed her at the gate. There it is, her hand on his chest, fingers curved around the dog tags she didn't consciously know she was touching. 2 years of marriage in a single gesture. 2 years of learning to carry each other, even when apart. Her phone buzzes. Text message from an overseas number. Landed safe. Time zone is crazy here. Miss you already. She types back. Dog tags secure. Boarding pass saved. Come home to me. Outside, Mrs. Patterson still waters her roses. Still Tuesday morning for her. Still ordinary routine. But for Sarah, it's the first day of something different. Not separation, not waiting. Connection across distance. Love made visible in small, true things. She pulls the dog tags from her pocket, runs her thumb across Michael's name etched in the metal, warm from her body heat, still carrying him close to her heart, exactly where they belong. Every military family knows this moment. The goodbye that isn't really goodbye, but a promise to stay connected across impossible distances. If this story touched you, if you recognize the quiet courage it takes to love someone whose duty calls them far from home, you're not alone. Subscribe to hear more stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Real moments of connection that remind us what matters most. And if you know someone who's waiting for their own soldier to come home, share this with them. Sometimes we all need to remember that love isn't diminished by distance. It's made stronger by it. Hit the notification bell. Join our community of people who believe in the power of staying connected, no matter how far apart we are. Your story matters too. We're listening.